The Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Week 32, Does God Hide the Truth? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. In last week's reading, we saw that the great masters themselves counseled discretion in the dissemination of truth. The counter-argument is sometimes made, but the Lord doesn't hide. He reveals his beauty in the sunsets, his tender sympathy in the rain, his wrath in the thunder, his restless energy in the brooks, his power in the sunlight. There are exoteric truths, and there are also esoteric truths. There is that which is revealed impersonally and left up to us to interpret, such as the thunder and our perception of it as divine wrath, the rain and our perception of it as God's sympathy. But behind even God's most open expressions, there lies impenetrable mystery. The wind blows where it will, said Jesus in chapter 3 of the Gospel of St. John. You hear the sound of it, but you do not know where it comes from or where it is going. So is everyone who is born of the Spirit. And Sri Krishna says in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, by me the whole vast universe of things is spread abroad. By me the unmanifest. In me are all existences contained, not I in them. God's hidden reality cannot be understood by the reasoning faculty. India's Shankya philosophy states frankly, Ishwar Asiddha, God is not provable. A willingness to seek the underlying reality behind appearances is essential for those who would know God. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning, everyone. For those that don't know me, my name is Rose, and I'm joined this week with Naya Swami Lorna and Bharati and Surendra, and it is our joy to be here and share in our heart's devotion in filling this temple with our love and our light, bringing Divine Mother's presence here with us. I'm going to start with a reading from Whispers from Eternity. These are poems and prayer demands written by Paramhansa Yogananda. And this is number 208. Thou didst reveal thy silver rays of speaking silence. Divine Mother, I heard thy voice in the speaking fragrance of the rose. I heard thy voice in the lisping whispers of my devotion. I heard thy voice beneath the din of my noisiest thoughts. It was thy love which spoke through the voice of friendship. I touched thy tenderness in the softness of the lily. O Divine Mother, break through the dawn and show thy face of light. Break through the sun and show thy face of power. Break through the night and show thy mooned face. Break through my thoughts and show thy face of wisdom. Break through my feelings and show thy face of love. Break through my pride and show thy face of humbleness. Break through my wisdom and show thy face of perfection. As I called to thee in the wildness of my loneliness, thou didst burst through the dawn and greet me with thy joy. Thou didst emerge from the molten door of the sun to invigorate me through the pores of my life. Thou didst tear away the night of my ignorance to reveal thy silver rays of speaking silence. It was Albert Einstein who wrote that there are two ways to live our lives. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. And I happen to be one of those people that see miracles all around me and really look for them and notice. And this came to mind as I was thinking about this topic, and I want to kind of expand it a little bit in relation to this topic, that there are two ways to live our life. One is in body consciousness, material consciousness, and the other is in spirit consciousness, being aware of the presence of God. Being on the spiritual path and following the teachings of these great masters asks us to have a life anchored in spirit consciousness. In our reading, it says, a willingness to seek the underlying reality behind appearances is essential for all who would know God. We cannot reach our spiritual goals by staying in body consciousness or this material plane. We come into this world and we've got to know our body, we've got to work with our body and use it on our life path. But we can't stop there, and many people do. Our goal is to know God, and if we're stuck in body consciousness, we miss the point. And it's natural from an ego perspective that we want to know the habits of the body. We want to be aware of our circumstances in life. We want to be, aware of the tragedies unfolding in the world, where, we have time where but then we keep going. We ruminate about what we said and what we did, and we get stuck in the here and now and the plans for the future. And we are created for more than that. Paramahansa Yogananda asks us to strive to live in the world, but not of this world. I find this, I call that one of the tightrope concepts, living in the world, but not of it, giving energy to our circumstances and our situations, but be unattached to the outcome, to remain deep in our astral spine, detached, but continuing to fulfill our obligations, to experience and feel the blessings of being in this physical form, but not indulge the senses. And I started thinking about these tightrope concepts, and they can go on and on and on and on. And I realized that I've spent a lot of the energy of my life on the last 30 years of being on this path, trying to stay on the tightrope and giving my energy to the staying on it rather than opening myself up a little bit more to the divine grace and opportunities all around me. In this year's Spiritual Renewal Week, Jyotish Devi did the first talk, and one of the first things he said in his talk was he discerned between the techniques of meditation and meditation itself. He said the path to getting there is different than being there. The goal of our spiritual life is Satchidananda, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. That is the goal, and the techniques are meant to get us to that goal. And we want to get the techniques as right as we can, but if we spend our energy and our willpower trying to perfect the techniques without experiencing the silence after the meditation techniques, then we're doing kind of a disservice to our spiritual aspirations. The goal of our techniques, the goal of our spiritual life is what these masters tell us, the path of self-realization. And Paramahansa Yogananda says that the self-realization is the knowing in all parts, body, mind, and soul, that we are now in the kingdom. We are now in the possession of the kingdom of God. We don't have to pray for it to come to us. God's omnipresence is our omnipresence, and we just have to improve our knowing. But to make progress on this path of self-realization, we can't be in body consciousness. We have to be in spirit consciousness, tuning into that omnipresence. When we're tuned into body consciousness, it really reinforces our separateness and our duality. And thinking about this, what popped up was this story that Master used to tell and Swamiji used to tell. And I don't know, it always just kind of made me giggle, make the kids laugh too. It was about Krishna and his gopis. And there was a group of gopis that lived in India near the river Jamuna. And each morning they would cross the river and bring fresh cheese to Krishna, offering their devotion, offering their love in this act. And one morning the gopis woke up and the river Jamuna was flooded, and they were like, how are we going to get across the river? And they're talking amongst themselves, really anxious about how they're going to give their offering, give their devotion to Krishna. And they remembered that Vyasa lived on their side of the river. And Vyasa was also a follower of Krishna, and he's the great soul who wrote the Bhagavad Gita. And so they said, okay, let's go to Vyasa and explain our situation, and maybe he'll have some solution, or maybe we can plead to him for some kind of miracle. And so the gopis go to Vyasa's hut, and they explain their situation. And Vyasa's response kind of shocked them. He said, Krishna, 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 you're always talking about Krishna. What about me? I want some cheese. Why can't I have some cheese sometimes? And the gopis were like, well, let's offer him a little bit of cheese. So they offered him some cheese, and he ate, and he ate, and ate. He gorged himself on the cheese. Their eyes were like saucers, and until he could swallow no more. And then, horrified, they watched as he hoisted himself on his feet. He waddled over to the river Jamuna, and in a loud voice he said, if I have eaten no cheese, may this river divide and part. And the gopis are back there going, what is this guy talking about? He is a liar. We saw him eat all that cheese. Can you believe he did that? Meanwhile, the river Jamuna opens and divides in parts, and the gopis scurry across the bed of the river with water and walls on either side of them, and they get to Krishna's cottage. But Krishna wasn't there at the doorway. They peeked into his cottage, and he's lying on the couch, smiling and sleepy. And they come to him with a little bit of cheese that is left, and they say, Krishna, Krishna, you know, here is the cheese we offer to you in our devotion and our love. And he said, oh, I'm so sorry. I cannot eat any more cheese. That fellow Vyasa across the river, he fed me so much. Vyasa was only thinking of Krishna as he ate the cheese. And so Krishna got all the benefit. And I can relate to this story sometimes with the gopis when things are happening and getting stuck on the details and what I'm seeing literally and physically, rather than being open to the miracle that is unfolding. The truths aren't hidden as much as we aren't spiritually trained to always see them and expect their likelihood. In this reading, Swamiji talks of exoteric truth and esoteric truth, and there's a lot of layers to this, but I often think of that as those that are kind of we can see and outside ourselves and that are expressed like the natural world, and then those esoteric truths that are hidden deep inside of our souls. And I'm not sure which one's easier to really see and witness and know. In meditation, we need to quiet our mind. We need to still our bodies. We need to practice the techniques, discipline yet relaxed, another tightrope concept. We need to maintain our receptivity, and all with willpower and stamina. And often we think of meditation, we have some kind of expectations. We do the techniques, and then we're supposed to have this outcome. We think linear. We think cause and effect. But I'm realizing that if we gauge divine grace by the rules in the material world, then we're going to miss something. The reading says, the wind blows where it will. You hear the sound of it, and you do not know where it comes from or where it is going. So is everyone who is born of spirit. We don't know the origin of the wind. We don't know exactly where it's going. It all is kind of a mystery. It is definitely a mystery. I recently came back this summer, a trip back east to see my parents. I go back about twice a year. And my parents are elderly now. They're what they call housebound. They live on one floor in just several rooms. Their world has gotten quite small. but they're doing well for their situation. And each trip home, I hate to admit, almost as long as I can remember, there is one heated argument. There is one conversation that ends up getting quite heated. And it starts with each of us presenting an opinion rooted in the facts that we know. And back and forth, we defend our opinion based on the facts that we know until there's walls that are built up between us. And neither of us can see the validity of each other's opinion because we're not in shared realities. We're in two different realities. And his source of facts, this is my father, and my source of facts come from different places. And so there's no bridge. And so back and forth we go until it gets escalating and escalating and escalating, and then we just have to separate. And like I said, it only happens once in our visits, and we separate, and it takes several hours until usually it's me, I can find my center, and then we can come back together. And this visit, I tried something different. Instead of going upstairs to my room, stewing in my anger, calling, a sibling or somebody that's not related to the situation and, telling them why I'm right and why he's wrong and being frustrated, I stopped and I thought, okay, what is really true in this situation? Once I recognized that we're in completely different realities, what is really true? And what is really true between myself and my father is that there's love. And love is an aspect of God's presence. And so I focused on that love. And by golly, the emotional charge went away, and we still had to work some things out, but we came to harmony a lot sooner. And what this taught me is that the bridge is always God's presence. And when we feel like we're in the dark and that God's presence is hiding, these masters tell us that there are 8 aspects of God's presence. We have the opportunity to go deeper within ourselves or look outside of us for these truths, but to feel one aspect of God's presence, to bridge that divide. Love, joy, calmness, peace, wisdom, power, light, sound. And so in this topic, does God hide the truth? I don't think there's a clear-cut answer. I think in each situation that we can't see the truth is an opportunity for us to go deeper in ourselves. And in my experience, God isn't hiding as much as I can't see the truth. It's on me, and it's not on the divine. I think of those Highlight magazine hidden puzzles from the 70s. I think they're still around now, but that's when I was doing them. For those that may be unfamiliar, there's an image with pictures hidden in the image and a list on the side of what the images are that you're supposed to find. And usually I could find, as I remember, it was a long time ago, could find 2 or 3 of the images. And then I would need some help. I'd ask, a sibling, a relative, a friend, and if all else fails, I would look at the answers. And the images are there all along, which is interesting. It's just that you've got to expand your vision and soften your eyes to see what's revealed in the puzzle. I think of this with situations where the truth is difficult to discern. Our brains and our hearts focus on the details. They focus on the expectations and the behaviors that we're seeing. And in this focus, as well as our emotional attachment, we're unable to see God's presence. What's interesting is you can't really see the truth because we don't see it with our eyes. We feel it intuitively, deep inside, a deep solidity that God's presence is there even when we can't see it. Last week, a friend from the community, we were walking across, for those that haven't been to the community, there's a green space in the center of all the apartments, and we were walking across green together, and spontaneously, I think maybe somebody else was here with me, she handed me a heart, a stone with a heart painted on it. And she recited a poem that was very familiar to her in her faith traditions, but I hadn't heard it before. And these words were written in an underground room in Germany by Jewish fugitives during the Nazi regime. And their translation from German is, I believe in the sun, even in the darkness. I believe in God, even when God is silent. And I believe in compassion, even when it must remain hidden. The depth of our faith and the commitment to these spiritual practices that make us receptive to God's truth is the goal of what we're doing here on the spiritual path. And when we get stuck, when we get heavy with body and material consciousness, I know, these masters know, many of us know that it's not permanent. But we have to put in the effort to raise our consciousness and expand our awareness. We say on this path, move some energy. In times of heaviness, emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, Yogananda and Swamiji tell us to use our energy to direct our will, to expand our consciousness. And I feel like from all my years at EFL, working with kids, helping them to lighten their heaviness, and also personally, I can share just very practical things that I have noticed has been helpful over the years. And the first one is breathe. Pay attention to your breath. Our breathing tells us a lot how contracted or tight we're feeling, how open we are. Move your body, walk, ride your bike, garden, energize, yoga postures, anything that's going to help to move your energy. Spend time in the natural world. That song channels so beautiful. I've forgotten until you hear it again. It's just so exquisite. And it gives us such a roadmap of where to find God, where to notice God in the natural world. Listen to the wind. Pay attention to the flowers and the trees. Look at the sky. Chant inwardly, out loud, by yourself, with others. Yogananda says that chanting is half the battle on the path to self-realization. Laugh. Laughter is a wonderful way to move that heaviness. Spend time with people whose energy, whose presence uplifts you. Environment is stronger than willpower, and we can use our environment as a tool to raise our consciousness. And if you can't spend time with others, spend time with the saints. I find one of the blessings of being alive in this day and age is the access to so many talks and books and music and podcasts. It's endless. All the spiritual teachings that are available to us to expand our hearts, to lighten our load, to lift our consciousness. And once you feel that heaviness lifted, that's the opportunity to go into the silence, go into Om, go into our heart's devotion where we can feel God's truth and sense it all around us. I'm going to close with a poem, another poem from Paramahansa Yogananda, and this one's from East West Magazine from 1926. Doors everywhere. When I was blind, I found not a door which led to thee. Thou hast opened my eyes, and now I find doors everywhere. Through the hearts of flowers, through the voice of friendship, through sweet remembrance of all lovely experiences. Every gust of my prayer opens an unentered door in the vast temple of thy presence. Joy to all of you, and I think we'll have some more music.